Hi there, bookworms and movie buffs. Welcome back to another episode of Chapter to Cinema, where we dive deep into the magical and sometimes tragic world of book to screen adaptations. I'm your host, Namrata, and today we have got to a very gripping story which we will be unpacking in this episode. It's one that had us biting our nails when we first read about it and left us even more tense when it hit the screens. Yes, we are talking about IC-814, the Kandahar Hijack on Netflix, based on Captain Devi Sharan's Edge of Your Seat book, Flight into Fear. Buckle up because we are going to go on a ride. First things first, let's discuss the premise book versus the screen. Let's start with the basics. What's the story? Flight into Fear is Captain Devi Sharan's personal account of the 1999 IC-814 hijacking, a heart-pounding story of survival, courage, and diplomacy. The Netflix adaptation, on the other hand, turns it into a high-stakes thriller series. Did the show capture that raw emotion or did it drift off the course? Let's find out. Moving on to the essence of the story. So, what's essential here? It's all about suspense and the human spirit under extreme pressure. You've got real passengers, real hijackers, and a pilot with one impossible mission to stay calm and land safely. Devi Sharan's book nails this. But did the series? Well, the Netflix version does amp up the tension. We are talking about cliffhangers galore and some seriously intense cinematography. But here's where things get tricky. The book is intimate. You are in Captain Sharan's head, feeling his anxiety. The series, on the other hand, leans a little into more explosive drama, literary and figuratively. Did they need to? Maybe not, but creative liberties, right? Coming to the performances, did the actors deliver? Did they manage to capture the essence of these real life characters? Spoiler alert, yes and no. The actor playing Captain Sharan, which is Vijay Verma, did bring the calm yet terrified pilot vibe to life, and you really felt his struggle. His performance kept you glued. However, there were inconsistencies throughout the series that were glaring. One of the most common observations was that despite being in hijack situation for 7 days, when they were allowed to go, the captain, which is Vijay Verma, did not even have a stubble on his face. He looked as fresh as it did on the first day when the flight took off. But here's the thing, some side characters, not so much. Certain passengers felt like cardboard cutouts of scared civilian number one instead of real fleshed out people, and some of the hijackers a little too over the top. Next, we will talk about the direction. Was it true to the book's tone? Captain Sharan's account is written with a serious reflective tone. It's a personal account of courage. The series, though, the series leaned into more political drama than action thriller. Director Anubhav Sinha focused on behind the scenes government negotiations, showing the tense decision making process and the complexities involved in agreeing to the hijackers' demands. Rather than the Hollywood style explosions or high speed chases, it felt like an intense political analysis of the events leading up to the release of the prisoners. But hey, it did keep us on the edge of the seats. So, points for that. The pacing, though, was a bit uneven. Some episodes felt drawn out, while others felt a little rushed through key events. That's one thing the book had over the series. The pacing was spot on. Every moment felt essential. Time for spoilers, key changes, and controversies. So, before we dive into the spoilers, a quick heads up. If you haven't watched IC-814, the Kandahar Hijack yet, and don't want any major plots revealed, now is a great time to hit pause, go binge the series, and come back to join us for a deep dive. We'll be waiting right here. If you're still here, then let's get some spoilers, folk. Captain Sharan, in a recent interview, pointed out the two key moments that didn't quite line up with reality. First, there is a scene in the series where the captain is shown repairing the toilets during the hijacking. According to Captain Sharan, that never happened. And then there is a final scene where the captain gets a salute from the Indian ministers. In real life, the ministers did thank him, but it wasn't as dramatic as the series made it seem. Oh, and let's not forget the controversies that followed. The show depicted the hijackers using Hindu names as code names during the hijack, which ruffled quite a few feathers. Viewers felt there should have been a disclaimer clarifying that these were adopted names and the hijackers were actually Muslim. Netflix eventually added that disclaimer, but not before some backlash. And then there is the whole issue with ANI, who weren't very thrilled that the show used their archival footage of the news coverage. With all the negative publicity surrounding the show, ANI didn't want to be dragged into the mess and requested that the footage be removed. Another common complaint from viewers was that the show seemed to humanize the hijackers, which many found unsettling. Well, the perils of screen adaptation. Coming to what worked and what didn't, the tension was real. Netflix clearly wanted to put you on that plane, feeling the danger and uncertainty. The moments between Captain Sharan and his crew were fantastic. Those personal dynamics kept the story grounded. But what didn't work? Let's talk about the plot holes. The series introduced a couple of subplots that weren't exactly explored in the book. And let's not forget, some key scenes from the book were either cut out or changed beyond recognition. Flight into Fear is all about those quiet moments of internal struggle, but the show, it's all explosions and chaos at times, losing some of the story's heart. Now, let's talk about how mediums shape storytelling. So, we start with a big question actually. How does the medium affect the storytelling? In a book, you get into a character's mind. You feel every moment in Captain Sharan's perspective. The series, on the other hand, is more about visual tension. There is music, there is action, there are close ups. It even gives you a visceral experience, but it somehow loses that personal connection the book had. So, would it have worked better without a dramatic flair? Maybe. But then again, would a Netflix audience stick around for 8 episodes of deep introspection? Tough call. Here are some fun facts and behind the scenes. We can't wrap up without some fun trivia, right? Did you know that the actors had to go through flight simulator training to really understand what a cockpit looks and feels like? Also, Captain Devi Sharan himself was a consultant on the series. So while they took creative liberties, the man behind the story was still a part of the process. Pretty cool, right? So what's the final verdict? Adaptation was a success or a failure? So for me, it was a 50-50. The tension and the performances were there, but some of the creative decisions just felt unnecessary. If you're a fan of high-stakes thrillers, it's worth the watch. But if you're expecting a faithful adaptation of Flight into Fear, maybe stick to the book. And that's a wrap for this episode of Chapter to Cinema. What do you think of this adaptation? Did it do justice to the book, or were you left shaking your head? Drop your thoughts in the comments or hit us up on the social media. Don't forget to subscribe for more book to screen adaptations. Until next time, happy watching and happy reading. Thank you so much.